craziest thing I've ever backflipped off of was probably this like old ship on its side in Australia. How do you juggle shifting priorities in your business and in your family? You know, to me, I see entrepreneurs all the time struggling with things coming up at work, major initiatives, or realizing that they weren't where they want to be, and then try to come up with this new strategic initiative. And it just starts adding a lot of friction in their business. They've got their partner that starts to get resentful, or they feel like guilty for not being able to make certain events. And I really think that these things can be avoided. And that's what I want to share in this video, because if you do it right, you can actually not feel guilty for wanting to grow your business. If you can make sure that you get the support to not feel like you're letting people down, and you can make it a win-win. And that's what I want to share in this framework, especially at the end. I'm going to share with you guys a tip you do not want to miss. It really for me came from building my company Spheric. I talk about balance and structure and family and all this stuff today, but that was not the way that I actually operated when I was 24 to 28. I built the company, it scaled 154% year over year. We did millions in revenue and eventually got acquired. And it was, obviously from a business point of view, it was a huge success, but personally it took a crazy toll on my health, my relationships, and I made a commitment after that experience to just go on a journey to discover a different way to build companies, because I didn't want to associate pain and disappointment in building my companies. I wanted to find a strategy that could make it so that the process made it win-win. So that's what I want to share with you. I get the call from the entrepreneur that's struggling, where their business is challenged, and then they try to make the right moves, and then it affects their personal life. And what I want to walk you guys through is a framework to think about. Number one is you got to negotiate and collaborate. Do you know how many times, I'm talking to an entrepreneur and they're like, my partner's pissed off at me. And I'm like, well, okay, I understand that you're working a lot, but before you made that decision, did you ever sit down with the love of your life and say, you know what, here's where I'm at. Here's what I think I'm going to need to do over the next 3-4 months to get out of this position. And it's going to meet X, Y, and Z. I'd love for you to give me some feedback. I'd love for us to discuss and have negotiate or collaborate around how that could work out. Have you ever done that? And they're like, no. I was like, so what you do is this. You essentially say, I need to go do this. You don't ask for if it's cool. You're going to impact their life. And then you go off and you do it. And then you get frustrated or pissed off that they're upset with you for not checking with them. Do you see how crazy that is? So number one, I want to encourage you that no matter what you got going on in your life, it's just outside of the norm that you sit down, negotiate, and collaborate with the people in your lives, right? It's just so much easier to say, this is what's going on. It's really challenging for me. Here's what I think I'm going to do. Let's talk. So that's number one. Number two is don't sacrifice the foundation. Here's what I mean by the foundation. In life, I believe, that there are 3 critical areas that you need to understand, right? One is business fundamentals. What are the things you do in your business that if you continue to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis that will support the growth, will support the sanity? That's the business fundamentals. Number 2 is success habits. What do you do in your life, from the routines, the rituals that you've implemented on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that that if you do, from working out to eating healthy to reading to going to events to spending time with your friends, whatever those things are, put those in the success habits category that you don't want to stop doing, okay? And then the third is responsibility to others. Back to point 1, it's what are the responsibilities and commitments I've made to other people? Because here's the way I look at it, is those are 3 things that are part of my foundation. And now when new opportunities come into my life, or there's challenges that come up, I got to assess those and say, okay, what am I willing to give up? I'm not saying you don't sacrifice. I'm just saying within limits, strategically think about it and say, okay, maybe instead of going to the gym 4 times a week, I'm going 2. I'm going Tuesdays and Thursdays. Maybe instead of missing all of these and just clear my schedule and say, you know what, honey, I'm sorry, but I got to be at the office at 6 a.m. and I'm going to work till 10 p.m. every night, so you no longer see your kids grow up. And I'm going to do that Saturday and Sunday. I've had entrepreneurs share that with me. That's their strategy. That's crazy, right? And I'm going to share with you why at the end, so you don't want to miss that. But not sacrificing your foundation is key. Number 3 is really making sure that you understand that they don't want this, and they being your family. You know, I find it so funny that entrepreneurs, you know, when I ask them, why are you doing this? They say, well, I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for my wife or my husband. I'm doing this for my community. I'm doing this for all these things. And the crazy part is those people don't want to see you suffer. They don't want to see you go through the pain, through the ups and the downs. They don't want this. You think they want to live a certain lifestyle that they were really cool not having. Most kids want your time. They want your affection. They want to spend time doing things, not getting things. And I think that's what you need to put in perspective is they don't want this, whatever this is, and they being your family or your loved ones. So understanding that when you're trying to juggle and shifting priorities between business and family is at the end of the day, they didn't ask you to double your business this year. They didn't ask you to take on that new initiative. They didn't ask you to go buy that company. You brought that on yourself, and you need to put that in perspective because I think that if you step back and you say, what kind of life do I want to live? Going back to point 2, which is the foundation, I think you would come up with a different answer. Now, all this is great, but the number 1 challenge that I get that I want to help solve for you guys is how do I make all this happen? It's easy. You pull out a calendar. I call it the perfect day and the perfect week. You take the things that you need to do and you put it in your calendar. And you don't just clearly dismiss everything that you've already made, the success habits, the business fundamentals, the responsibility to others. And you look at your calendar and you sit down with the people in your life and you negotiate with that. That's what I want to see great entrepreneurs do. So I'm going to ask you to leave a comment below. What have you been guilty of? Or better yet, maybe you don't want to share the guilty part. Maybe what are you going to do better going in the future? Maybe it's going to be negotiate or ask or collaborate or invite the conversation to happen with your partner, right? When you're taking on big things. Maybe it's scheduling things into your calendar. Whatever it is, I want to hear from you below in the comments. Let me know that. As per usual, I want to invite you to live a bigger life and a bigger business, and I'll see you next week. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'd also invite you to join my newsletter where I share exclusive invites to events and other free training videos. And if you're ready to get going, I got 2 playlists queued up with more content. I'll see you next Monday.